But I just wanted to ask you which way I ought to go.
Well, that depends on where you want to get to.
Oh, it really doesn't matter. As long as I can...
Then it really doesn't matter which way you go.
If we want the students to know where they are going in our courses, then effective learning outcomes and objectives are a crucial component to achieve this result. Quality objectives are a key contributor to course design and subsequently student learning. The purpose of this presentation is to discuss the differences between outcomes and objectives and how this applies to your course student learning outcomes and module level objectives. Then we will review Bloom's revised taxonomy and apply the framework to the construction of module level objectives. The first part of this presentation will define key terms, outcomes, and objectives and illustrate their relationship within the course components. Much confusion exists about the definition of outcomes and objectives. Part of the confusion results from the fact that the terms are often conflated even in the literature. For the purpose of this presentation, we will define student learning outcomes, SLOs, as the course level goals that are usually communicated to your student in the syllabus. They are general statements of desired instructional outcomes and can be broken down into more specific behaviors. The module level objectives, or MLOs, are specific weekly objectives you will address throughout the course. It is important to communicate to your students what you want them to be able to do at the end of the lesson or week. You can choose to communicate the MLOs in a weekly announcement that introduces the upcoming content, or what I do is post them directly on the course page. The benefits of explicitly defining the weekly MLOs are twofold. First, from the instructor point of view, it will help design activities, assessments, and assignments more effectively. From the student view, it can facilitate self-monitoring of student learning. This slide provides a graphic of the relationship between SLOs and MLOs. As you can see, the MLOs should derive from the SLOs. This is a critical component of course alignment, and the process for this will be discussed in the next instructional video. Whether discussing both MLOs, SLOs, a quality outcome or objective must describe a student performance that can be meaningfully assessed. Now we will review Bloom's taxonomy, the framework we will use for course alignment. In 1956, Benjamin Bloom and his team of educators published a method of classification for thinking behaviors believed to be important in the processes of learning. In 2001, Anderson and Krathwohl published a revised version, which we will be using to facilitate course alignment. While it should be noted that other educational taxonomies and hierarchical systems have been developed, we will be using Bloom's taxonomy as it is the de facto standard for most educational-based curricula. If you wish to learn more about Bloom's taxonomy, please see the links listed on the resources page in this course. The diagram of Bloom's taxonomy illustrates cognitive processes in a hierarchical form, with lower order thinking skills at the base of the triangle and higher level thinking skills at the top. The diagram represents a continuum of increasing cognitive complexity. When developing SLOs and MLOs for your course, you will want to use the Bloom's taxonomy verb list provided in this module. This list will help you determine the level of cognitive processes you wish to address in your outcomes and objectives. The cognitive process dimension of Bloom's revised taxonomy will be defined in the next two slides. As you can see, to remember something is to retrieve relevant knowledge from long-term memory. When a student is able to construct meaning from instructional messages, they are said to understand the concept. Application occurs when the learner is able to carry out or use a procedure in a given situation. Now notice how the change in verbs for each example enables the students to think differently about the same concept. Presented here are the higher order thinking skills. The higher order thinking skills require basic foundational knowledge found in the lower order cognitive processes. Analyze means to break material into constituent parts and determine how the parts relate to each other and to the overall structure of the idea. A learner evaluates when they are able to make judgments based on standards and criteria. And finally, when a learner puts elements together to form a coherent whole or reorganize knowledge into a new pattern, they are said to have created. Once again, notice in the examples how the change in verb usage enables students to act on the same concept, but in a different way. Bloom's revised taxonomy included structural modifications with the addition of the knowledge dimension. The revised taxonomy classified 4 types of knowledge learners may be expected to acquire or construct, ranging from concrete to abstract. Factual knowledge includes terminology, specific details, and elements. Conceptual knowledge refers to classifications and categories and includes principles, generalizations, theories, and models. Procedural knowledge are subject-specific skills, techniques, and methods. This type of knowledge includes the ability to determine criteria for when to use appropriate procedures. The highest level of knowledge is metacognitive. This involves strategic knowledge, cognitive tasks, and appropriate contextual and conditional knowledge. Metacognition also includes the awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes, something all educators should strive to help their students achieve. When the cognitive and knowledge dimensions are arranged in a matrix, it provides a framework for plotting objectives, activities, and assignments. Using a list of Bloom's taxonomy verbs that correspond with the different levels of cognition, you can plot the verbs that associate with your outcomes and objectives and measure which level of cognition and knowledge your course addresses. When writing SLOs or creating MLOs, you will focus more on the cognitive processes. However, it is important to consider the levels of knowledge dimension as well. This will provide a clear roadmap to the course and provide a framework for students and instructors. You want to make sure that your outcomes are specific, observable, and measurable by using the action verbs provided in the Bloom's taxonomy verb list. Your outcomes and objectives should be simple, unambiguous, and clearly focused statements. When performing course alignment, you will want to consider what the students should know at the end of each week, module, or lesson, in addition to what you want the students to know at the end of the course. Naturally, you want to ensure that the MLOs and the SLOs are aligned. You will want to be sure to have only 3 to 5 objectives each week. Any more than that, your students will experience cognitive overload and may learn a lot of content but not very well. Quality over quantity wins the objective ball game every time. Be sure to address a variety of cognitive levels throughout the course, but be conscientious of the course level in which you are designing. Lower level and undergraduate courses need to build the foundational knowledge in order to succeed in the upper level or graduate courses. This slide will show you some examples of incorrect and correctly written outcomes or objectives. Why is the first example incorrect? Learn about the concepts of duties, rights, and obligations. If outcomes and objectives are to be measurable, then how do you measure student learning? Better yet, how does this inform the student how they will be measured? A better way to write the objective is to use a Bloom's taxonomy verb like seen here. Discuss the concepts of duties, rights, and obligations. Now the students understand exactly what is expected of them in order to demonstrate the knowledge of duties, rights, and obligations. So, what's the problem with the second example? Provide students with the knowledge about how library works. This is a teacher-centered performance and does not depict what the student is required to do in order to master the objective. Once again, using a Bloom's taxonomy verb specifically describes what it is that the student needs to do in order to master the objective. Every program of instruction or course begins with a goal. This goal can be broken down into specific goals or learning outcomes and objectives. They are concise statements about what a student should be able to do at the conclusion of instruction. By clearly articulating learning outcomes and objectives, you provide students with a clear direction by which to focus their learning efforts. You also direct your choice of instructional activities and guide your assessment strategies and improve the effectiveness of your course.